Okay, welcome. I'll try something new. I had a request from somebody that just overviewing these scripts and definitions and sending the GH file maybe isn't what everybody enjoys, and I know I don't learn that way. I really need to see a tutorial going through, and Unikora Horikawa, I think it is, and Daniel Kristev and Parametric House. There's so many that do a great job at it. I like Ohm. I just watch those and just get a new idea. But now I've got enough skill sets down after a year and a half in Grasshopper and going over these nodes. Now, without going in the plugins, let's keep going on curves. What I have. So how I really start a script is not rocket science, and it usually ends up in failure. But of course, you see the end snippets. But then once again, it works. So what I'd like to do is kind of go down here and grab a curve frame and be like, I'm going to use curve frame, and let me get that set up here. So I'm going to make an effort to try and use that and think what I could do with it. And this is how I go at it. I'm going to grab derivatives. I really don't know where I'm going to go with that, but I like calculus. Evaluate curve I've used quite a bit. Well, I evaluate a lot of things, so I figure let's grab that one. Perp frames are pretty good. I like those. And point on curve we'll end up using torsion I've never used, so let's figure it out. So what I do is I look at it and I kind of think, okay, here's what goes in, here what comes out. If I see I need a curve, a curve, a curve, and a curve, and a curve, I've got a pretty quick cheat. Grab a populate 3D, set the count to at least 3, throw it in there, the region's made, put it on blind, and send that into the curve. And now it's saying, I won't work for you until you give me some more oh, what's that? Coming home. I think I'll pick a milk and some bubble juice. All right, thanks, wife. All right, so here we go. Let's grab a parameter. We obviously are probably going to want to reparameterize this curve and set a parameter between 0 and 1. So I just type in, that's one way to do it. And I don't mean to go too fast, but I have my parameter in there now, and it's like, no, curve frame. Get the curvature frame of a curve at a specific parameter. Well, why don't you give me a frame? What's up with that? Fail to convert point to curve. Oh, because I this is like how I think. I don't think, and I work ahead of myself all the time. And I like NURBS curves lately, but let's do a oh heck, let's grab, and this is where I go off on a tangent. Let's grab an interpolated curve and let's grab a NURBS curve because they both give you something different. So let's take a look at that one. There's a generated curve in 3 dimensions, and there's the NURBS curve in 3 dimensions. It's not much, but if you start disco balling this around up into another area with NURBS curves, and if you really wanted to have some fun with in 3 dimensions, this is where I end up going in here and being like, well, I'll just go into surface center box, and that way I can start to, whoop, once again, error, pull that into my region tool. And now I've got a nice box that I can just, I always hover here and see what it's set at 1. So I'll be like, well, I want an integer rational. So I'll type in 2.00. That'll allow me to play XYZ and at least double the size of my cube just in case I want to see what I'm doing. So I always keep an idea of in my head of what scale I'm working in. We'll take that up to 10 and just jump right in there with a awesome, oh, and once again, we have to turn that one off because we don't want to be looking at that all the time. So let's just take a look at the curves we've made. We've got a NURBS curve, and we've got an interpolated curve. They're pretty sweet. And we could close them off, but look at how awesome they are, the way they appear like they've closed. And I've never thought about that before. So that's a total fluke that these two curves, I forgot, well, of course they're going to come from the same point. And I totally think to myself, well, okay, let's grab a surface and see if I can at least grab a surface from those two curves, from those edges. And I don't think that'll work. And it did not. And the reason it didn't work is they weren't joined. So I'm going to go into join curve. And this is where you run into problems, but I'm going to embarrass myself with my noviceness. Shift to connect to there. And there's our curve, I believe, as one closed curve. Now I should be able to do it. Now, why are you not working? Why are you saying surface return no results? Oh, because that's a boundary surface, and it's probably saying, no, I don't like your boundary surfaces. What do you got here? I got a closed curve. Sounds like a boundary surface. Well, let's try something different to close it up. Let's use the old patch tool that seems to do the trick in most situations. And there we go. We've got a nice patch. So now I have a surface, and I did not intend to go to that surface. I intended to get curve frame and do something with it. And of course, I have a parameter here that's not working. And I would think with this curve line, I could take that parameter and get a frame. And I could start to hold down shift and see this and see that item and be like, well, here's my frame on that side, right there, going all over, doing all this disco ball awesomeness as it rotates and turns. But since that's working so well there, we could stay consistent and grab the other NURBS curve. Now we have two curves, two planes, and a surface. And I'm like, all right, it's time. And this one's off because of the NURBS curve does not like an interpolated curve through points. So that's going to create an interesting geometry. And as soon as I see something freakish like that, I'm like, well, there's two planes. Let's just take a look. And I have this fast script that bothers everybody because I just love it so much and I always bring it in. I'm going to grab that little script and hustle it in here. And I'm going to take my scale on that snippet tool, which is going a little fast, but I do work in snippets when I have scripts I really like, and this is for extruding surfaces along their normals, so you get some really nice detail. Let me go into edit here, go to rational numbers, just pump this up to maybe 2, bring it down, and then take my untrimmed surface, and since that snippet works every time I want to use it, let's take that surface and pop it in here. There we go. Now I have a very weird thing that is not functioning, is functioning, and something's going wrong with the patch, and there, it fixed itself. Sometimes when you're bringing a snippet of a script that works, this is my extrude surface snippet that really I've done in detail on other ones. You take an untrimmed surface and you put it into, I think it's worth its own. You'd have to look back at my surface one. I'd have to locate it for you. Basically running through, I think I learned it off of, not Mode Lab, so I learned it off of Patriarch. He really does a nice job at pulling out this system of finding the center point away from the center. And closest point, which builds a tangent from the center of a surface using an MD slider by dividing the domain, which is outstanding because then you can really do some really fun surfaces with it, and it can handle tons of surfaces. So you basically can extrude in a very cool fashion like that actually makes a pretty kick-ass object. And I'm just going to jump in here and go to there, and you can see that form could be done in Rhino, but it's tricky to do well in Grasshopper. But that script works so well for me, I'm very happy with it. Of course, I don't want to keep anything baked. I want everything hovering and flying around. So that script, I do need to go into more detail. But we're at the 7-minute mark, and I'm still playing around. I haven't done everything I wanted to. But I definitely have some weird shape. I have this surface and this surface, but keep in mind they're not on that. So first thing I want to do is I want to see something. So if I want to visualize something, I'm going to take a sphere and pop it on that frame, and I'm going to pop it on this frame. And sometimes I bring them both in, and then you're dealing with trees. You're dealing with lists. That's an option. If you have a small script and you know you're not going to go crazy, keep them separate. You're going to end up using dispatch to get back at them anyhow. So whether you drag them both into here and then go back into here and grab yourself a dispatch tool just to end up separating them again after flattening them, well, then go right ahead. But I think I've got that sphere. And sometimes I just like to work ahead and pull my script over and say, okay, here's what we're looking at. 2 spheres right here and here, one on the surface, one not on the surface. And I like that. And I like that so much that juicy little curve. I'm like, look at the way that hugs that curve. But there's no reason that parameter has to be just that parameter. So as soon as I have that, and I haven't even gotten into these other nodes I intended on using. As soon as I have something I like, I'm like, disco, let's go. Grab yourself a sequence, grab yourself a range. You've got a curve coming out. Let's set it to 10, but maybe we want control over that. So 2 to 10 steps. Let's the domain's there, but I make a good habit of creating domains. I want my domains to be anywhere between, let me think, parameter, it's going to go from 0 to 1. This is going to split in 2. It's already set at 0 to 1, so I'll be fine. What happens when I pop that range in there and I've got 2 count? Well, now I start to do this and I get a lot more counts up that one side, and I can do the exact same. And that domain, it could stay the same here, but that's just in the middle. I want one going from 0 to 1. So to extract that, you can see what you have, which is a domain. And then if you took a look at what was there with a panel tool, I do that an awful lot. It's 0. So at that point, why don't I just go in, double click, hit 1.00. I've got a slider for 0 to 1. I'll copy and paste it. I'll bring this one down to 0, this one up to 1. And now I have range. And since I don't want to go all the way to the ends, I'm going to bring it in from the front, back from the other side. Now I've got 2 sets of data, and this list is not feeding this one yet, and there it goes. I've got 2 sets of data that are producing a lot of spheres on that surface, and I have this now. And as soon as I have that, I'm like, right on. I can live with that. And what did I do wrong that's packing all this data in and not packing it in on the other one? No, it's just the way the NURBS work, and I've worked away from the side. So what I'm going to do is just separate this a little bit, pull those apart so there's nothing touching one another. I think I can handle that. And I'm just going to do what solids love to do. I'm going to be very cautious with this because we're watching the time. Let's do a Boolean difference. Let's take the breps A, let's minus breps B, see if we like that. And we do like that. And we still should have these objects. And sometimes it's good not to pack everything in. So if it's not a big script, just take your time, do it again, grab that brep A, and punk that in there. And it's going to slow down my script now. You can start to see my profiler is starting to tell me, no, you're going a little too slow. So there we go. I've got something here, and it looks like the script being a little funky. I don't really like it. I'm wondering why the script is running that way, and there's a little bit of data freezing up in here. What I'm going to do is just take all this data and hit preview off so I can only see what I'm looking at, and I'm wondering why I'm ending up with, did I copy the wrong thing? These breps A, which has gotten kind of funky as a closed brep, it might be having trouble with that other data, and it could be that it's just thinned out too much. You see that it's actually taking on a thin thing, so it's not dealing with those spheres. So those spheres are trying to Boolean union into a very strange form. So what I can maybe do to change that is crank this up, edit, and see if this makes a difference. I'm not sure if it is, but we've got a problem with our script. So let's thicken it up double and just take a look at what happens. And we're still not dropping off those other two because I think it goes to such a fish gill thinness that it just doesn't work, and I'm really wondering why it doesn't. So what I'm going to do is do down here, go back in and say, here's my step count. Let's take my step count back and see if that has effect on getting rid of some of those spheres, because it should be a cheese ball form, and I shouldn't be getting that sphere stuck in there. And there it is stuck in there. Let me pull this back, see if I can move out of that way. Why is that one giving me trouble? And you know what it is? I'm such a fool. I'm such a total fool. I think I totally know. I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to zoom back in. Well, no, it's not that. I thought possibly there was something else on. So anyway, we got a little problem with the script. If something's going funky, it won't disappear here. Let me jump into here and do preview mesh quality and go to high quality just to see things differently. Jump into here, take a look at that. Zoom back out and say, well, why is that Boolean union working and not working in places? Why are there problem spheres here? And what I could do also is go back in and say, at the 12-minute mark, let's seed this sucker differently and not be happy with that form and seed it into a different geometry, and look at that nonsense. We still have the same problem. So I really ended up making a piece of geometry that's just wild. Let's take the count down to 3. So what I do is I reduce my scripts until things work and make them so simple. Obviously 2 is a little too simple, which as soon as you leave your geometry, that should tell you something. And it looks like we still got a little bit of problem with those funky flashings and those spheres. I'm not too happy with it, but you know, this is really how I come at things. When I discover something I like, most of the time I discover things I don't like. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab a bake. I'm going to throw it outside, leave it, take it over into a rendered. Actually, take it over into something that I like, the shadows and what's made. And you can see there's some problems with what was happening with those spheres, whether they're touching or not, but they don't want to go away. And the cheesiness, the cheese ball of it only worked on the one side. Now, I don't know why you'd want to make an object like this. It's how I go about. And my main goal, I don't even think I got around to it. Did I get around to it? Oh, I did. I took my curves and I pulled a frame out because of a curve and a parameter. So, you know, you learn the node. You know it's there. And you end up making something that you're not in love with. You might accidentally get places in things that you didn't intend. If you do like what you make, or if you don't like what you make, get it out of the way. Now, if you have a script that's slowing down, possibly, and we got to watch the time, you're getting down into 1.7 scripts and things like that, you're probably not going to want to watch things. So you're going to want to come in here and maybe have a step slider and right click and edit and move that down to 3, then hit OK, because then it'll jump right to it. You're not trying to get through a slider. That should change the geometry a little bit, but I don't see much changes. It was just the spheres that changed. And I've got to wrap up because Ramen is at the end. Let's do the same with here. See this point differently. Roll it up here and see if we end up with a different geometry in it. I'm sure we do. And there we go. We got another kind of disco form. Not sure what's happening. Anyway, keep playing with it. Have fun. I got to wrap it up. That's how I make Grasshopper files. And yes, it's chaotic and I enjoy it. And I get to know every single node because of it. Thanks for watching.